So it's Wednesday, and that means only one thing. Time to look at the new Kickstarters. In this episode, I'm going to look at all the new Kickstarters that are up and coming, and also some Kickstarters that are ending in the next 7 days. Unlike my other episodes, this is not scripted at all. It's all done off the cuff, and there will be no post editing either, so it'll be rough and ready. But as we say in the UK, today's news is tomorrow's chip paper, so if I don't get it out quick, then it's meaningless. And this will be released simultaneously on audio podcast and YouTube. So first up, let's have a look at the new Kickstarters that have just landed. And we start with Aurobur, or Aurobur's Coils of the Serpent. It's an epic 5e fantasy campaign setting by Chris Metzen, and this one has already smashed through its goals. So what's it all about? It's a world book for the universe of Lorebrand. And let's have a look. A fantastical realm featuring 8 bustling trade cities, dangerous factions, frightening enemies, and the power of Aurobur itself. See, I can't even say that name, so they could do with a better name, couldn't they? Lorebrand is a realm full of danger and intrigue. Bards tell of times long past, of a world pushed to the brink by cataclysmic events, of mysterious cults and underworld crime syndicates. And on the page there, they've got some nice pictures of the hardback book. It includes for 5e new races and subclasses. The subclasses are Wildkeeper, Wraithblade, Way of Eminence, Soul Eater. So if 5e is your jam, then this one might well be worth checking out. Next up is Swords and Spaceships, Space Tabletop System and Setting. That sounds a bit of a tongue twister. This is a space opera tabletop role-playing game allowing you to take a strong focus on your character, your gear and your story. So it's a science fiction tabletop role-playing game in a fictional part of the galaxy called the Gale System. And you are free to use their system, which is a long way from Sol, our current system, or you can use what they've set up for you. There are a number of unique characters that fill the Gale system, and these races or ancestries, as we call them these days. We have humans, bugs, AI, which are synthetic, quadrupeds, and crystals. There's some nice weapons that are included. And how does the system work? Well, it claims to be simple to play. It's based off a D100 system where their players attempt to roll below their associated abilities in order to achieve a task. The simple in nature play is complicated by your imagination, and there are conditions that make targeted rolls easier or more difficult, and it links itself to fate in some way, and that's the way the modifications have been come about. So that one is Swords and Spaceships, Space Tabletop System and Setting. I just hope from now on we've got something a bit easier to say. Next up is the Hyperion XIII 3D printable sci-fi modular tiles and props. And that's right, this is 3D terrain for your tabletop war games or RPGs. And I put this one in here because quite often that sci-fi stuff seems to be a bit lacking. People always say that there's plenty of fantasy stuff, but when it comes to sci-fi, then it's a bit short. So this is modular terrain and props. I think of your spaceships, that sort of stuff. And the pictures here on the Kickstarter look very nice. And there's you can grab the STL files once it's Kickstarter funds and print away to your heart's content. Next up on the new list is Endless Encounters Dungeons, and this is a 5th edition and BX adventure generator from Pacesetter Games. So Pacesetter, quite a well-known company, and they've covered both the bases here with covering 5e and BX. And this book has got 200 pages for both systems, and it allows you to randomly craft a dungeon to play through in just minutes. So if you're running a bit late and you need to generate an adventure or a dungeon, then this has got you covered. It covers levels 1 to 8 for both systems, and it has got pages of random tables that you can roll to on your heart's content for dungeons, for loot, and all that sort of stuff. So take a look at that if you're interested in generating some fantasy dungeons. Next up is another 5e1. This is Comets and Cockpits. This is a Junker space fantasy setting where homesteaders cultivate a lost megaplanet and tech magnates explore a forgotten satellite city. So this one here is, think of your Firefly type game set in space, and the project is divided into 2 hardcover books, each with its own attitude. The Geographica Adelphos, set on a massive unexplored world filled with ancient artifacts and locations. It's a grittier, grungier atmosphere, and Technologica Epoch filled with magitechs, mechs and starships, set in a thriving satellite city with corporate espionage galore. So it's got a new detailed setting, 5 new races, 7 new subclasses, rules for a new magic system, a gazetteer, a 6th level adventure, and 30 plus creatures in their bestiary. Next up, for those people who are stuck at home and no one to game with, then we've got Stormweavers, a story-driven solo tabletop game. As a dwarven warrior, you undertake a journey across the icy north of Midgard to find and rescue your friend. Now, these are becoming quite popular at the current time, where people aren't able to get to their gaming groups and are not really into online play, so this one's got you covered. It comes with a game book. It's a book in which you determine the plot development based on the decisions you take. Each paragraph within the 350-page story contains unique decisions to be made and leads you to subsequent pages within the storybook. And you have several options to choose from. So this is like the old choose your own adventure games that used to be prevalent back in the late 80s, early 90s. It claims the rules are nice and simple, and it uses looks like a 2d6 system. So if you want a bit of solo play, then this one's got you covered. And it also comes with some battle maps in the book as well, so you can do some little encounters. Then we have Orbital Blues. This is a blues-infused space western role-playing game with an accompanying cassette EP. Oh yes, do you remember cassettes? Oh, so have a look at this one. This is an intergalactic age of cowboys, outlaws and bandits on an interstellar stage. Time of hypercapitalism and cutthroat gig economy. Unreliable trash heaps carry scrappy underdogs to the next skid, and corporation freighters lumber across the horizon laden with an empire's bounty. So this is Orbital Blues. So again, this is covering on from games such as Cowboy Bebop, Firefly and Guardians of the Galaxy. It's a lo-fi space western role-playing game. It's based on a simple D6 system with 3 basic stats: muscle, grit and savvy, and which handle roles and uncertainty, putting the narrative and relationships of the play characters at the heart of play. That is Orbital Blues. Next up is another 5e supplement. This is Tavern Tales. This is a circus-themed tavern packed with adventures, NPCs, items, and more to be placed into your new or existing D&D 5e campaign. This is a hardback book, and it covers you for anything running around a tavern. It's a fully realised circus-themed tavern to place into your world. It covers the locals, the employees, the rumours, which can lead to quests. They have 12 regulars. So if that's your sort of thing, then it's got a host of guest writers involved with it. So that's Tavern Tales. And the last on the new stuff, battle maps. Yeah, we all need some nice battle maps. And I've seen a trend currently on Kickstarter with people designing their own maps in Dungeon Draft and just putting them up for a cheap price. But I don't want to cover those. I want to cover nice battle maps. And this one I found is Map Alchemist HD Outdoor Battle Maps with stunning 3D views. So it's 22 high-definition outdoor battle maps for all fantasy RPG campaigns, but it also includes gorgeous 3D views. So each map has got a 3D view associated with it. So it's a top-down battle map, and they've got some examples here of a snow scene. So you look down on the snow scene with a river, some trees, and then it's got a 3D view from 2 or 3 angles so that you can use it for theatre of the mind as well. So I thought that was a bit different. So if you're interested in 22 high definition outdoor battle maps, then go and check this one out by Map Alchemist. So that's all the new stuff. Let's have a look at what's ending over the next 7 days. So the first one that's ending soon is the Hunt for Sunblade Tower. This is a 5e wilderness adventure with a compelling storyline, original creatures, new spells, and detailed inclusive NPCs. The story is your player characters will take place in a haunted forest, festering swamps, wild scrublands, and possibly even to the air to fly over giant companions. And it's got a strong storyline, handouts, and there's lots of stuff in here to add to this adventure. This is your jam. Next up, ending soon, is Trinity Continuum Adventure, tabletop role-playing game. Help us to create a traditionally printed version of Trinity Continuum Adventure and get it into the stores. So Trinity Continuum, for those that don't know, is the story path system by I think it's White Wolf that created it, or is it Onyx? Maybe Onyx. And it's similar to the Chronicles of Darkness White Wolf games. It's a D10 pool system, but has been changed up for the story path system with certain story paths. And this is a pulp action game excuse me, set in alternative histories of the 1930s. So it's got details about the world of the 1930s, rules for creating inspired characters, with 3 different types of inspired, daredevils, mesmerites, and stalwarts, along with new gifts for all 3. But this does require the use of the Trinity Continuum core rulebook. So if you want to see a printed version of Adventure, then check this one out. Next up is Hardbacks of Han, a medieval fantasy setting. And this is first in a series of Hanbacks, which are hardcover editions of the Kingdoms of Han. The Han world setting and Kingdoms of Han includes some unpleasant but real aspects of real-world medieval life, including violence and adult themes. So if you're fans of Han, you will know well about Han. And this is got some nice maps, cities and towns, connections, all good Han stuff. And they've got a big plan of things that they're going to print for this. Next up is Anime 5e, a 5th edition role-playing reimagined. And this is a way to unleash your anime and Magna Fantasy adventures using the world's most popular 5th edition role-playing game. So that's right, this is Big Eye, Small Mouth D20 fantasy role-playing. And it's done by the same creator that was responsible for the Big Eye, Small Mouth anime role-playing game, but now he's ported it across to 5e. And you can understand why, with such a big following for 5e, then getting your stuff on here, maybe hopefully it will encourage people to look at your other non-E5 related stuff. And there's a wealth of pledge levels with loads and loads of content, and some beautiful 5e, some beautiful anime art in there. So if you're into like 5e and you like anime, this 272 full color page book might be just up your street. Next up is some 28 to 32mm modular resin terrain by Tabletop Worlds Graveyard. This is highly detailed and handcrafted resin cast terrain in those scales for RPGs and tabletop games. And they've got some great pictures on here of the graveyards, walls, trees. So check this one out if you really like this sort of terrain. Descriptions on an audio podcast can't do it justice. And Morkborg's still not going away, it's still a hotness, and we've got a Morkborg adventure called Lord. A nameless land conquered by a warlord known as the Saint cries out for a saviour. Choose your side in a story yet to be told. So it's an RPG adventure where you wander through a nameless land, fallen in misery after a long war, and now occupied by an usurper warlord known as the Saint. Learn about the Saint's plan and why this little strip of dirt seems to be important for so many powers. The adventure is being released in both English and Italian, and it's got the art which you would expect to find with Morkborg, with some nice bright artwork. So yeah, if you're looking for something for Morkborg, then Lord might be up your street. Next we have First Day Came, a blindfold role-playing game, which is an immersive role-playing game played blindfolded, guided by an interactive soundtrack. Say what? Yes, you play this game wearing a blindfold. So it's a game to be played face-to-face or online. So if you're online, I don't know how you can ensure your players are blindfolded. I don't know. So you play in the dark or blindfolded, guided by audio tracks that reproduce the different environments in which the story unfolds. It's an immersive, touching experience that will allow you to live a deep and human existence. And the story is set in Berlin, 1942. You step into the role of those persecuted by the Nazi regime for ethnic, political, gender, or religious reasons. And it's designed for one-shot sessions lasting 2 to 3 hours of 3 to 5 players. Then we've got Radzone, a solo roll and write print and play RPG game. This is set in a harsh future where you lead survivors in a quest to keep your rad bunker supplied. The world faces a terrible apocalypse. Without warning, the sun's radiation spiked to alarming levels, and under this relentless and deadly barrage, humanity succumbed. So you live in a rad bunker and strive to keep your home stocked with food, water, medical supplies, fuel, equipment, and raw material. And as I said, it's a solo play game which revolves around a series of printable sheets. So you can select your character, fill out the sheets, and live and supply. That's Radzone. Now this one's a bit different. I caught this on one of the other podcasts. I think it was on Frostsoft's Blogorama or RPG Blog Pocket. RPG Blog. This is called Possible Worlds, an RP subscription box. It's 6 games in 6 genres over 6 months. And this one is by Tyler Crumreen, and he designs RPGs that are slightly different, and he began by designing games for his younger brother, and it's a matter of designing a game for a specific genre or a specific story, and this Possible Worlds is the culmination of his design ethos. So it's a micro RPG subscription box with both digital and physical tiers, and you will receive a 25 RPG in digital format at the start of each month, and each of the games will be different. And some of the releases that are coming is Dating.sim, a light-hearted romance. You've got Grandpa's Farm, a letter writing RPG for one or more players. There's Hounds, a dice stacking game. There's Scene Thieves, a troop-style diceless RPG. And you've got Power, Single Unique Power, a cast-building setting creation RPG. And Wishless, an RPG where once upon a time, every living person was given 3 wishes. And this is the one that really piqued my interest. You've already used your wish, but the rest of the world still might have theirs. In search of unused wishes, barter with the GM to determine which NPC's wishes you're aware of and which remain a mystery. And finally, but not the end of the road, it is Crimson Chains, SCP Horror for 5e, a 5th edition fantasy campaign of cosmic horror versus the Scarlet King. This is an adventure that will take characters from level 1 to level 20. There is new nightmarish monsters to haunt the players, and legacy weapons of cosmic power and terrain vistas of reality. Who is the Scarlet King? The Scarlet King is a primordial force formed as the manifestation of the strain between the current age and the former and fury it creates. But what is the SCP? Well, the SCP Foundation is a fictional secret organization entrusted by governments around the globe to contain and study anomalous individuals, entities, locations, objects, and phenomena operating outside the bounds of natural law. And if you're familiar with the SCP website where people can create these new anomalies and stuff for the current world, then you know what all this is about. So that is my picks for what's coming up, this and what is finishing. These are all purely subjective. It's just what's caught my eye and may be of interest to you. So do check them out. Time is short, and I'll catch you all on the flip side. You've been listening to the Dragons Are Real podcast. For more information, check out the website at pjones.neocities.org. The blog is dragonsarerealpodcast.tumblr.com. We are also on YouTube, Facebook and other platforms. If you want to get in touch, you can send me a voicemail via the Anchor app at anchor.fm/dragonsarereal, or you can send me an email at dragonsarerealpodcast@pm.me. Thanks all for listening, and I'll catch you all on the flip side.